Okay, I'm here.
Okay. So Paul, if you want to start it, that'd be great.
Is it time to start?
Yes.
Okay. It's time to bring the City of Kingman Municipal Utilities Commission to order. It is Thursday, January 28, 2021. The first order of business is to call to order and roll call.
Okay, Commissioner Shuffler,
Here.
Commissioner DeWitt,
Here.
Commissioner Orr. Oh, he's not here. Commissioner Van Ousting,
Here.
Commissioner Van Zandt, Commissioner Retberg,
Here.
Commissioner Yarish,
Here.
Council Liaison Walker. We have a quorum.
I'm here.
Okay.
All right. The next item on the agenda is to elect and re-elect a chairman and vice chairman of the MUC. I'm going to throw it out to the board. Do we have any nominations for chairman? And if somebody else wants to do this, I really have no problem with that.
I'd like to nominate Paul Shuffler for chairman.
That's not nice.
You do such a good job though, Paul.
I'll second it because he does such a good job.
Well, do we have anybody else who wants to nominate anybody else? All right, let's go ahead and vote on it. Everybody in favor of that, say aye.
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 All opposed? Well, I guess I get to do it again. All right, now we're going to elect a vice chairman. And can I have some nominations? Do we have any nominations for vice chairman?
I nominate Will. By the way, I'm here. If you guys can see me now.
Yes.
Yep.
I nominate Will. Will, I think you're well qualified for this position.
I would second that nomination.
Do we have any other nominations? All right, then I think we should vote on that. Everybody in agreement with that? Let me have an yes.
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 Anybody that disagrees with it, can I have a no? The yes passes. We now have a chairman and a vice chairman. The next item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. If everybo's ready, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can we have approval of minutes from December 14th, 2020? If everybody's had a chance to look at it, do we have any corrections or anything anybody wants to change?
I make a motion to approve the minutes if no one has any objections.
Second.
If everybody's in agreement, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
If anybody is disagrees, say nay. The ayes have it. The minutes have been approved. All right, now we're going to be looking at consideration of public comments. Has anybody signed in or anybody wish to speak or say anything from the public?
No one's signed in or sent anything in.
Okay. All right, then we're gonna go to 3A, reappointment and appointment of the commission members. I'm wondering if we shouldn't have done this first. Myself, Mr. Van Zant, and Randy. And I tell you what, I don't want to mispronounce your last name.
It's just straight Dimmitt.
Okay, thank you. We've all been reappointed for a 3-year term expiring in 2023. Is there anybody who wants to say anything different in that effect? Okay, I think that was just information for the board. Greg, on the 3B for the solid waste customer survey presentation, I think you're doing this, is that correct?
So I'm gonna defer to our Public Works Department and Rob Owen. Rob's been handling this from day one, and he is most familiar with it. And I think later on, Tina and our city consultant will handle the presentation under 4B. I'll just say congratulations, Chairman and Vice Chairman. Glad to have you guys back. So I'll turn it over to Rob. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'm Rob Owen. I'm Public Works Director for the city. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Heads nodding? All right, okay. This is a presentation we did for council on our solid waste survey results. So as part of the rate study for solid waste, when we presented our preliminary report to the council, they had asked us to do some customer outreach to get opinion on some of the different scenarios we were looking at as far as possible rate adjustments or revenue increases. So we put together a customer survey. I guess, to start with, public outreach during a pandemic is challenging, and I appreciate the effort that everybody put into this. This was a team project. So this survey was conducted from November 9th to December 18th. And the survey was intended to gauge input from our residential customers. So right now we have just under 12,000 residential solid waste customers. So we got a lot bigger response than I thought we would. We almost had 2,000 responses to our survey. We did it a couple different ways. We sent out paper surveys in the water bills that went to all the residential solid waste customers. And we also posted a survey on SurveyMonkey. Paper responses were definitely the more popular of the responses we received. So we'll just go through. There was a series of questions we asked. Some of these slides are a little redundant because I'm showing them. I know some people see graphs and pictures better, and some people want to see the numbers. So I figured I'd show both of them. So the first question was, do you reside within city limits? Overwhelmingly, the answer was yes. As that was over 96% of our respondents were yes, that they resided in the city limits. And just the background on that question is, we do not provide solid waste service outside of the city limits other than, picking up our own city-owned facilities. Question number 2 was, how satisfied were you or are you with our current service? And, this is kind of a testament to Ed Tapia and Glenn Proudfoot and kind of the dedication to customer service that they exhibit, and the whole division's really bought into. So, it's real proud to see that very satisfied was overwhelmingly the most popular choice. And again, so almost 90% of our customers are very satisfied with our current service. Question number 3 was dealing with the drop-off recycling program. So when the program was in place, and the program ended the beginning of this fiscal year, and that was strictly based upon the cost of the service. But when the program was in place, how frequently did you use it? And the number one answer was never, and the second answer was weekly. And there's the breakdown percentage-wise on those. Question number 4. So one thing that came up during our solid waste, the first iteration of our report on the rate study was, would people want us to cut back to once a week service? Now, the Arizona Administrative Code requires that municipalities supply twice a week trash pickup. There is a waiver procedure that you can go through, and you have to come up with a plan to deal with these items that we're going to be asking about on the next few slides. But that waiver procedure has to be approved by Mojave County Public Health Department and the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. So we were asked to ask about that and see if there was a real interest in that. So this was some of the, if we were to go once a week, what would your concerns be as far as odors and smells? The primary answer was very concerned, and that's just under 45%. What would the concern level be about rodents and pests? Again, that was very concerned, and over 41%. And then just the accumulation of trash, and that was very concerned was the number one answer, and that was over 50% of the respondents. So question number 5 got into some of the different rate structure scenarios. So option 1 would be to maintain the current level of service of twice a week collection, trash collection, with an average 5-year increase of $1.29 up to a rate of $21.07 a month. Option 2 would be to maintain the current level of service of twice per week trash collection, reinstating the drop-off recycling program with an average 5-year increase of $3.11 a month. Option 3 would be to reduce the current level of service to once per week collection, trash collection, with an average 5-year decrease of $4.56 a month. And then option 4 was to reduce the current level of service to once per week trash collection, reinstituting the drop-off recycling program with an average 5-year decrease of $2.74 a month. So option number 1, which is basically maintain the existing level of service, twice per week trash pickup with no recycling, was the number 1 choice at around 25%, with the other options coming in between 11 and 12%. And question number 6 was kind of a follow-up to that. Some places that do have once a week trash pickup allow customers to get a second can. So your trash is only getting picked up once a week, but you can have 2 cans to put out. So the response to this was, no, folks wouldn't pay an additional fee for a second trash can. And then the number 2 response was, it depends. And I guess that's probably, it depends how much it costs. But that wasn't something that was included in our initial rate study. And there's the breakdown on the responses to question 6. So that's kind of our survey results. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those for you.
I'd like to ask Rob one quick question. The recycling, how important is that? And do we have to do that?
No, we don't have to, and I think, with based upon the survey results, it's very important to some people, but most of our customers did not recommend an option with a drop-off recycling program. Recycling is in a pretty bad spot right now, and it has been for a while. And there's a long story there, but basically, the overseas markets have dried up for recycled material, especially from the Western United States. So, we were spending about, and Tina can correct me if I'm wrong, because I usually am, but I think we figured the cost of service for our recycling program was somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 when we were operating it. So it's not cheap, and the markets are pretty volatile and not really in a great place right now.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
If we went to once a week trash service, that really wouldn't save the city any money because the rates would be reduced. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the solid waste is an enterprise fund, just like water. And I guess I probably should talk about that a little bit up front, but like water and wastewater, we're trying to cover our cost, and we're not building in a profit margin. We do have funds that we maintain. Our big issue right now is just vehicle replacement. Trash trucks are very expensive. We haven't been replacing them like we need to, and we're spending a lot more on maintenance because of that. So, but yeah, we're trying to cover the cost of our service.
Well, in the plans where it all talked about basically reducing costs, will that help? Or is there any funds available to replace the trucks? Because I know from my side that the trucks are a fortune, and maintenance is way worse than buying a new car. And most of them, or these garbage trucks, most of them, they get replaced about every 5 to 8 years. Mm-hmm. Because after 5 years, the maintenance starts adding up so much between the hot oils and all that stuff, the lubricants that you have to put in, et cetera. So reducing the cost, does that leave any room to replace them?
Well, so that vehicle replacement would be built into that rate structure. So, and you're right, ideally you're replacing vehicles, on a 7-year cycle. The way we've got it in our rate proposal right now is that it'd be on a 10-year cycle, which would still be a big improvement for us. But it would be built in as one of those costs of running the service. So we would be establishing that vehicle replacement fund under the proposed rate structures.
Do we have any more questions or discussion? I'd like to clarify one thing, if I might. I believe where we're heading here is that we need to make some sort of recommendation to City Council. And it would be based on the different options that was given to us. Do we have any more discussion on specifically the options, and also which ones that we would like to recommend to City Council?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could, this is Rob again. There's the next item on the agenda is actually a more detailed walk through the proposed rate structure, and I believe that would be the appropriate time to ask those kind of detailed questions and proceed with the recommendation for council. I just kind of wanted to give the commission just the background on what we've received so far as public input into the solid waste rate study. So there would be another item that would be an action item for recommendation to council.
All right. On the reports on 3B, the solid waste customer survey presentation, do we have any more discussion on that, or is there any more questions that you'd like to ask? If there's not any, then I believe we're going to move on to 4A, the solid waste rate study. Rob, are you presenting that?
Well, I believe Tina will probably kick the beginning of that off, but we do have our consultants on the line to kind of walk us through the details of it. So.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. So it's been almost a year since we brought to you the review of our solid waste program, and we shared with you that we were undergoing a rate study and that we would bring back to you at some point the study's results, what our recommendations were, and then ultimately asking you for a recommendation to take to council. Well, when we shared a little bit of the study with council last May, at that point they asked us to go out for a survey, and those are the results that you just shared. And so now we're back in your court, ready to share the study's results and then ultimately the staff and consultants recommendation. And who has helped us gather all of this information and put all of the financial models together are Kevin Burnett with Wilden Financial Services and Pat Walker of Pat Walker Consulting. And they are going to walk us through our presentation. And as we go along, if you have any questions whatsoever, by all means, pipe in the middle of the presentation. And of course, there will always be an opportunity at the end to ask questions as well. Kevin, do you have access to share your screen? You do.
Yeah, it's me, Tina.
Okay, thanks, Pat.
Yep, I'm gonna start it out here. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, as Tina said, my name is Pat Walker. I've been working with Kevin Burnett from Wilden Financial Services on the solid waste rate study in conjunction with staff now, as Tina said, for about a year. And I'm going to do the first part of the presentation, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to get into a little bit more of the details. So what we're going to talk about is the study process, what we went through to get to the results, the different alternatives, summary of the proposed revenue increases that we're looking at, the summary of the revenue increases, proposed rate alternatives, which we have 4, and then benchmarking and comparisons to other communities. As we just said, the consultant team worked with the city team to identify different financial plan options, incorporating ongoing operations, maintenance expenses, vehicle replacement needs, anything that it costs, the operating cost to provide the services. And a financial plan just does that. It's a little different than a rate plan. It just tells you how much revenue you're going to need. So when you look at your operating revenues minus your operating cost, whatever that differential is what you're going to need in a revenue increase. The city team then performed a cost of service analysis, so they knew how much it cost to serve specific customers. And then we developed the base financial plan, and alternative plans were based on the changing, the current provided services, and we explored many alternatives, and we got it down to 4. My mouse is not cooperating tonight, sorry about that. As I mentioned, what a financial plan is what a revenue increase is, and looking at additional funding that you need to meet the ongoing expenses. So you look at ongoing revenues minus ongoing expenses, and that's what a revenue increase. A rate increase is the impact to an individual, be it residential, be it commercial, and how the additional revenue is recovered. And so we really want to make that differential so that, because if somebody says, well, the revenue increase is 10%, but my bill went up 15 or my bill went down to 5, that's because different classes have different costs and we adjust the rates accordingly. A revenue increase, rate increase will not necessarily be the same for each customer is the main point we want to get across. So why are we needing it? As Rob talked about, you have a replace aging fleet. You need to meet increasing operational costs. Unfortunately, things go up, not down. and you need to meet and maintain targeted reserve levels. You have a 60-day reserve level that you must meet. That's just good financial practices and planning to keep that. And even, 60 days is the minimum. So the scenarios that were evaluated were option 1, maintain current level of service. Option 2 was maintain current level of service, but plus drop off recycling. 3, again, maintain current level of service, but reduce current level of service and go to once a week pickup. And then option 4 is reduce current level of service and to once a week plus drop off recycling. And again, the rates have been updated to reflect cost of service, include 10-year vehicle rotation using a 7-year lease program, as Rob alluded to. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin to get into the nuts and bolts of this.
All right, thank you, Pat. So what we've got here is the 4 rate options or financial plan scenarios that Rob alluded to and that Pat touched on as well. And then what the proposed revenue increases are for fiscal years 21 through 25. And then as Pat mentioned, a rate increase is not necessarily the same as a revenue increase. So for example, if you look at option 1, we're proposing a 2% revenue increase in fiscal year 21. So we need 2% more revenue. And then if you scroll over a little bit, fiscal year 21 residential rate increase, we're not proposing a rate increase for residential customers. So this is how the cost of service shakes out, where when the analysis was done, it showed that commercial rates needed to increase to meet the cost of providing that service, and residential did not. So that 2% revenue increase translates to just under a 35% increase for commercial and no increase for residential. So that was option 1, which was maintaining the current level of service. We've got it highlighted in green or aqua. I'm not really sure what color that is. That was the recommended option that Pat and I felt best matched the city's goals, and that was what the city staff also were most comfortable with. So moving down to option 2 was the current level of service plus drop-off recycling. So you can see the revenue increase needs are a little bit higher because we do have that drop-off recycling program in there. So that translates into higher costs to the city and therefore higher costs that need to be recovered from our customers. So in that case, the residential rates would go up in 2021, and they would also go up for commercial as well. So they're going to go up a little bit more than they did in the previous scenario. Option 3 is going to once a week collection. So we've got a little bit of a decrease there for the residential rates to begin with, and then they would be going up after that. And then we've got an increase on the commercial side as well. And then option 4 that we looked at was the once a week collection plus the drop off. So again, adding in the drop off collection is going to increase the city's costs, and that's going to translate into an increase in the sewers, in the customer's bills. So if we want to move to the next slide, please there, Pat. So this is, again, what we saw on the previous side for option 1, the current level of service. So those are the rate increases and what the rates would be for the residential class and what the commercial rate increases would be. And then on the bottom, you see a graph that touches on what Pat was talking about with the cash reserve targets that we need to meet. So right now you can see that the darker blue bar is what the target reserve is. That's the 60 days that Pat touched on. And then the more aqua colored bar is what our cash reserves are. So you can see that over time, we're proposing to draw down our cash reserves. They're higher than they need to be right now. We're proposing to draw them down over time so that by the time we get out to fiscal year 27, fiscal year 28, we're at a pretty good match of where the target reserve should be and what our actual reserves are. So we've got a little bit of room to play with there, which is in part why we've got the 2, the 3, the 3.5% increases going forward. we're relying on that fund balance to be drawn down over time, so that we can slowly adjust the rates to get to be where they need to be in order to fully cover our costs, as opposed to waiting until 26, 27, and instead of seeing 2 or 3% increases, we would see double-digit increases to try and make up for the fact that our costs have been going up year over year, but we're not maintaining pace with that through our rates. So then the next slide, please. There were some questions before about the maintenance of the vehicles versus the replacement. So as Rob mentioned, and again, as Pat mentioned, we've got the 10-year vehicle replacement program. So this is what the city has put together. This is what we've incorporated into our financial plans to make sure that the funding is available to fund those programs. So you can see it's starting with 3 vehicles in 2021, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 12 as we move through. And you can see what the lease payments are going to be anticipated to be. So that's all been factored into the financial plan so that we are taking that more proactive approach on vehicle replacement, reducing our maintenance costs on the vehicles because they are newer and don't need the same upkeep and don't have the same amount of downtime that they otherwise would. Slide, please. Whoop. So here we've got a comparison of what the rate, not a comparison, but a projection of what the rates are going to be going forward based on the financial plan that we're recommending, that option 1. So the residential customers, you've got a little over 11,580 customers. You see the current rate there at 1978 is proposed to remain unchanged for 21, and then it's going to go up a little bit each year through 2025. On the commercial side there's certainly far more customers than we have listed on the commercial side. But if we were to list what all the customers were, all the services provided, all the rates, it would take up a multiple slides. So what we have presented here for you is just a snapshot of select customers on the commercial side. So you can see they've got the fairly big jump in the first year, looking at the basic commercial service 2 times a week, going from $12.36 to $16.66. And then it's more the 3% inflationary increases that we had programmed into our financial plan moving forward on that front. We've got the residential extra trash at the bottom at a current rate of $15. It would be going up to $25 and then increasing thereafter at that same revenue increase of about 3% a year. And then the commercial extra trash is recommended to be discontinued under this plan. Next slide. So as we look at what our neighbors are doing, whenever we do this, everybody wants to know, it's a question we always get asked, is what are our neighbors doing? What are their costs? What services are they providing? So we've got that information for you in the next slide, but we want to caveat it that trying to get an exact apples to apples comparison between you and Bullhead and Flagstaff and anybody else, it's very difficult to do. You provide different services, you've got different age of fleet, your customer base is different, your proximity to landfills, et cetera. So while it is useful to have a rate comparison and what are we doing compared to our neighbors, I think the bigger issue is, as Rob alluded to in his part of the presentation, how do our customers feel about the services that we're providing? And it was an overwhelming, very positive feeling of your level of service and what services you're providing today. So with that background information, if we move to the next slide. So we've got some different communities there: Buckeye, Bullhead, Havasu, Flagstaff, Prescott, Sierra Vista, and Williams. And you can see whether they're private or public services, the current residential rate, and then whether they offer curbside recycling, drop-off recycling, the frequency of the pickups, and then you've got some private haulers down at the bottom there too. So we did take a mix of both municipalities and then as well as some of the private contractors that are out there. So if you remember your current rates, they're right in the middle of all of these different communities that we looked at there. So next slide, please. So what we see as our next steps after this meeting, would be present the findings and your recommendations to council and adopt a notice of intent and set a public hearing date. So we're proposing to do that on February 16th. The public hearing would be on April 20th, and then we would have new rates go into effect on July 1. And with that, that's all we had as our formal presentation. So we're happy to try and answer any questions you might have for us.
I have a question on the slide regarding the truck replacement. It seemed like you had like a lot of trucks being replaced in years down the road, more than what you have now. So is that because they're all going to wear out at once, or what is the reason for that?
Rob, did you want to, or Tina?
Yeah. So what happens, Commissioner, they're on a 10-year rotation program, and I want to say we have 13 vehicles total in our fleet. Eddie, am I right? Rob, am I right? I want to make sure that I'm saying that right. And so what happens is what we're saying on this slide is that in the first year, we're going to lease three of those 13 vehicles. The next year, we're going to lease another 3. So there's going to be 6 of our vehicles on that lease program. That third year, we're going to lease another 3. So that's 9 until we get to that 13 in year 10. And I'm sorry, in year 7. And then thereafter, they just continue to rotate. So we will always have a high level of trucks that are on a lease program.
Yeah, I understand now. It's like cumulative. I was reading the chart wrong, so
Okay.
It makes sense.
Okay.
Do we have any more questions or discussion?
I'm sorry, I was on mute when I was talking. What's the rollover on those leases, Tina? Are they 3 years, 10 years?
7 years.
7 years?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't think it's going to amount to a whole lot, but the vehicles and everything that we have right now, what's proposed to happen to those? Are they trade-ins? Do we get any value for them?
This is Rob, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. We auction off those vehicles. We actually auctioned off 3 of them this year. And I can't tell you off the top of my head how much we got exactly for them, but those 3 of the oldest ones, I think we got somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 for the old trash trucks.
Does that money stay in the solid waste program? And does it have anything to do with any of our reserve money, or is it earmarked for general operation?
Well, it would stay in solid waste and be earmarked towards the vehicle replacement program. So it would be some additional revenues for the vehicle replacement program.
Do we have any further questions or discussion? And I don't mean to be pushing you. If I am, please tell me. All right. If there's no more discussion, we're going to move from 4A, which is a solid waste rate study, and we're going to move to 4B, which is review and approve. No, wait a minute, we need to stop. Rob, are we supposed to send anything to City Council on our thoughts for this?
Yes, sir. We'd appreciate it, a recommendation that we can forward to the council. And Kevin or Pat's got us on the right slide. It would be which one of these options we would be recommending to the council to institute for the solid waste rate program.
Okay, I'd like to open that for discussion a little bit. You can see the 4 different options. We also know how the customers voted on most of this. And I'd like to hear from our members. If you're not going to go with the rate study, or not, it's not the rate study, it was the survey. I believe the survey overwhelmingly wanted option 1. Would there be any other discussions on option 2, 3, or 4?
I would say, I would not be in favor of, reducing the collections to once a week. I don't know, I hate to say it, but there's enough trash blowing around Kingman as it is, and I think, that would probably make that problem worse. So I would suggest staying with option 1.
I would concur with Commissioner Orr on that. That looks like the best option overall, and I like the idea of the lease plan and keeping the fleet newer and rotating the trucks instead of dealing with some antiquated fleet that we're trying to keep up with the maintenance on. But option 1, I concur with Commissioner Orr, I think looks the best.
I also concur because it's going to keep the fleet newer, which from a maintenance standpoint is going to reduce those costs tremendously.
If there's no more discussion, can I have a motion to recommend option 1, 2, 3, or 4 to the city council?
I'll make that motion that we recommend, option 1.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. It approves, or it's approved with unanimous vote, and that will be sent on from MUC to City Council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Under new business, number B would be to review and approve the calendar. Has everybody had a chance to look at the calendar? Does anybody want to propose any changes to it?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the calendar.
I'll second that.
Everyone that agrees with that, give me a yes or an A.
Yes.
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 Anybody that disagrees with it, give me a nay. The calendar is approved. And we're going to move on to announcement by commission members. Anybody have any things that you'd like to bring before the board? Anything that you would like to have some more or further information on? If I don't have any other information or announcements by the commission members, can I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn today's meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. We are in adjournment. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you next